I'm a regular guy in my 30s. Like many kids, I discovered my moderate talent at the piano lessons. My parents sent me to when I was young. Back then, it felt a bit odd for a boy to be attending piano lessons, but I actually enjoyed it. However, the world is full of true geniuses. When I first started playing the piano, I entered competitions and won several awards. I got into an arts middle school, but soon realized I was out of my league. My family wasn't well off, so I never really had proper lessons. I eventually chose to transfer to a regular high school due to financial and skill issues. Looking back, I have many regrets, but at the time, I felt I had no other choice. Transferring to a regular high school actually eased my mind. I wasn't compared to others and just had to get by with my studies. My grades weren't great, but they were good enough to get into a local college, so I wasn't too worried about my future. As time went by, I graduated from college and got a job. Life felt monotonous until I joined a music club and started playing the piano again, which rejuvenated my spirit. I naturally became interested in piano tuning, which has become my current profession. I quit my tedious office job to learn piano tuning. Now, I run a small music store using all my savings. Although not many people come to buy instruments these days, most of my income comes from tuning pianos on site. One day, through a club member's referral, I ended up tuning a piano in an affluent neighborhood. It was quite a distance, but the lady of the house insisted on having me tune their piano, so I made time for the trip. That was the first time I saw such a grand house in real life. It had a tall fence, a private garage, and when I entered, the courtyard unfolded like a palace, leaving me in awe. However, I tried not to gawk too much and politely greeted the lady upon entering. I heard from an acquaintance that her husband had been a professional for many years before retiring. Although in her early 60s, the lady did not look her age at all, appearing more like in her mid-50s, thanks to excellent self-care. Had I not been told, I would have thought she was younger than my parents. Her children were all professionals, and she even had grandchildren. Her demeanor was elegant, and she was strikingly beautiful, surprising me at first glance. The luxurious house and the dignified lady quite impressed me, but I composed myself. The area was lined with affluent houses, and I hoped that doing a good job might lead to more referrals and a slightly easier way to increase my income. Tuning the piano didn't take long at all. Considering it had never been serviced before, it was in surprisingly good shape. In just under an hour of diligent work, the lady of the house began to strike up a conversation with me. She casually asked from her seat, "How did you get into this line of work?" I was a bit bored at the time, so I shared my story briefly. I used to dream of becoming a pianist, but due to financial reasons and realizing my own limitations, I gave it up, I replied, to which she gave a wistful look. She then confided in me. I understand that feeling all too well. Back in my day, women were expected not to work once they got married. Despite my education, I never got the chance to use it, and that has been a regret of mine. Continuing, she said, "Now, I'm busy looking after my grandchildren, picking them up from school while my own children are at work during the quiet hours of the day. I often wonder what I'm living for," she sighed. Hearing this, I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. So I encouraged her. "It's never too late to start doing what you love. Don't put it off or give up. I quit a perfectly good job to pursue tunning full-time. She gave a slight smile at my words. Then, standing up and approaching me, she asked, "Do you really think so?" Suddenly, I felt nervous, my throat going dry. As she came closer, my heart raced. Could it be that something I hadn't even dared to imagine was about to happen? My hands were sweating as I hadn't finished tuning the piano, unable to speak, just looking at her. Then, unexpectedly, she kissed me. When I didn't respond, she stepped back and apologized. "It was a mistake. I'm sorry." But then, feeling some sort of defiance, I kissed her back. We ended up having a tender and beautiful time together. I had never imagined that I would find love with a woman 20 years my senior, but she was so well preserved and beautiful that I felt no aversion. As the grandchildren's return was imminent, we hurriedly arranged our surroundings. She said she would call me again to finish the tunning that we hadn't completed today, leaving her business card behind. Without any further ado, I left my business card on the piano and exited. As I returned to my car, pondering whether this was a dream or reality, my phone beeped with a notification. The travel expenses had been deposited. In the midst of my routine life, one day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was a middle-aged woman who said, "I got your contact from a recommendation. Could you come over for some tuning?" Naturally, I agreed and headed to the address she provided. The house was like a mansion. Honestly, I wasn't sure why she recommended me, but I gathered all the necessary equipment for tuning and was led by the housekeeper to the room. It was a room with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a Steinway piano was placed in the center. I was genuinely surprised as I had never seen one in person before. The lady of the house entered and said with a smile, "You're here for the tuning, right? Please have a look. It hasn't been played for quite some time." I had never touched such an expensive piano before, so my confidence was shaken. I worried about damaging it. Upon inspection, it seemed there was nothing for me to adjust. As I looked around, nervous about potentially facing blame, my hands started to tremble slightly. The lady noticed and grabbed my hands, asking, "Why are you trembling?" Startled, I froze, but she pulled me to the piano and sat me down. She then started to describe a piece. "What's that song?" "It's by Mozart. It turned out to be the overture to the Marriage of Figaro." She asked if I could play it for her. Feeling like I couldn't refuse, I quickly searched for the sheet music on my phone and, with trembling hands, played the piano for the first time in ages. She sat right beside me, enjoying the piece, and at some point, rested her head on my shoulder, whispering, "Come once a month to maintain it. Even if there's nothing to fix, you can just play for me." Confused about her intentions, I replied, "I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with such pianos and my tuning skills are inadequate. Perhaps it would be better to call someone else." She looked at me intently and then burst out laughing, saying, "You're more innocent than I thought. It wasn't like this with the lady next door." Jane, hitting the nail on the head. Realizing she knew everything, I was shocked and bowed, my head in worried silence. Lost for what to do next, the lady said, "If you come once a month, I'll make sure you're compensated well for the tuning. What do you say?" As she looked into my eyes, it was then I realized why she had called me, and once again, I crossed a line I shouldn't have. After that, occasionally, ladies from affluent households would request my tuning services. Often, when I visited their homes, The reasons were as I had anticipated. It was my first time realizing such a world existed, and initially I felt guilty. After all, I too had a family. However, as I began to receive more calls and spent secretive hours toning, my income grew significantly, rivaling that of many business owners. I expanded my instrument shop and even upgraded it, leaving the day-to-day operations to my employees while I went back to learning more about toning. Over time, my slight guilt faded away. Going out for toning a few times a week and spending a couple of hours became a routine, even boosting my confidence. Depending on the preferences of the ladies, I became more proactive and even started to enjoy these encounters. Bringing a substantial amount of money home made my wife happy too. Being able to buy my kids good toys without hesitation and afford their tuition made me feel proud. I know this shouldn't continue, but earning money and meeting these beautiful ladies has been quite enjoyable. Although this phase might end someday, I intend to savor this unexpected fortune in my life a bit longer.